Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And the ice cream man came and gave us chocolate swirl, Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
Well, at least I'm not melting in the heat. It's a very pleasant spring day here, John, and I'm very excited to be on the show today.
And it's good to have you here. By the way, a little short note. So, you know my buddy Soul.
I do.
You've met Soul a few times. So my buddy Soul, I'm about to completely disclose absolutely private medical information. But my buddy Soul had to go in for surgery yesterday. So he went into surgery yesterday to get his gallbladder removed. So I had to go to the hospital. I went and got his prescriptions, picked him up from the hospital, brought him back to our place. He crashed here with us just so we could keep an eye on him overnight as the anesthetic wears off. And last night, we were sitting around 10 o'clock, and he's like, have you seen this Schwartzman? And what's the name of the kid who was the head of the main star of Silicon Valley? Militich or something along those lines. Anyway, Schwartzman, who's John Raffio on Parks and Rec and was just the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog, and this dude who is the lead star of Silicon Valley, they have this special on Netflix right now. It's like a 3-episode special where it's just them. It's no script. It's completely just the two of them on stage doing improv. And I saw it listed on my Netflix, as I was going through Netflix, I would see it pop up. But my buddy Soul last night saying, you got to watch this. It's really funny. And so we put it on last night. And I recommend, if you've got Netflix, check this out. It's blah, 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 and Schwartz. It's really good. It's just them doing improv. And I was cracking up. And so I recommend, Rob, you should probably check it out because I know you've got an appreciation for that stuff.
I do. I love that. I love stand-up comedy.
So, hey, listen, guys, we got a couple of things we're going to talk about here today. But before we get into that stuff, just want to remind you a little bit of house cleaning here. If you are, you like watching the John Campea Show, but sometimes you're on the road, you're commuting, you're at work, you're at the gym, not the best opportunity to pop up a YouTube video. Good news is there is an audio-only version. Of course, you can go on your favorite podcasting app of choice. Just search for the John Campea Show podcast, and it is there. It's a full audio edition of our show. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who were able to make that happen. So that's there, guys. I just want to make sure you guys were aware of that. All right, listen. Most of today's show is going to be a lot of live questions, not a lot of in-depth breaking news, but there are a couple of items we're going to talk about here first before we get into the live questions. And the first thing that we're going to talk about here today just broke this morning. I got an email alert from Disney Public Relations earlier today to let us know about this. Now, you guys know the number one, the absolute top musical that has taken over the world over the last number of years is, of course, Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton. And, I was a little late to it. It had already been out for about a year by the time Ann and I got a chance to go out and watch it in Los Angeles here. And it completely lives up to the hype. It is an amazing show, like just jaw-dropping, amazing show. Loved it. Now, of course, we talked about this a couple of months ago where Disney bought the rights for $75 million, bought the rights to professionally film the live stage show as it was going on. And they were going to release that video. They were going to release that professionally produced recording of the stage production. And they were just going to release that in theaters in October of 2021. Now, the one thing, Rob, you and I kind of raised our eyebrows at a bit, because we were like, oh yeah, Hamilton, super popular. Oh, just not a movie version, but you're just filming the stage? Okay, that's interesting. But the one thing we raised our eyebrows at was, why October of 2021?
Right.
Like, it's not like you have a load of post-production to do, and it's done. But why 2021? Well, it ain't October of 2021 anymore. It's now in like a month and a half. It's coming out in July. Disney released the news today that they are going to put it on Disney Plus on, I believe it's the 4th of July. I think that's when they were saying it. So it's coming out in July. Of course, how proper that a show like Hamilton would come out on the 4th of July. Absolutely proper. But Rob, this is a massive shift on two different fronts. On front number one, it is a massive date shift. I mean, this is not just bumping something a couple of months or whatever. This is well over a year. This is well over a year of a shift that they're going from October 2021, which again, I never understood why they felt the need that it had to be in October of 2021 in the first place, but whatever. So this is well over a year moving it up. That's main shift number one. The second main shift that can't be overlooked here is that October of 2021 was going to be a theatrical release. They were going to do the thing of just taking the recorded stage play, put it out in theaters. Now it's coming out on Disney Plus. And it's going to raise the question on both accounts, why? Why move it over a year, and then why make that shift from theatrical to Disney Plus? And I think both of those things have the same reason. And that reason is because they got nothing on Disney Plus. I honestly think that's the bottom line. That's the reason for both. You know, in the Variety article itself, they actually go out of their way to point out the fact that not only has Disney Plus, which, listen, you know I love The Mandalorian. You know I love The Mandalorian. And their library is great. They have a great library of content on there. But aside from that, it's been Workshop Heroes, hosted by Justin Long. And I adore Justin Long, I do, but whatever. Be Our Chef, the cooking show with Angela from The Office. And I love Angela from The Office, I do. But it has been to call what Netflix, or not Netflix, to call what Disney has put out on Disney Plus in terms of original programming. Now, how long are we into it, Rob? 3 months, 4 months, 5? I lost track. What are we at?
More than 6 months, I think. Wasn't it November?
It was November or December. So January, February, March, April. We're getting, let's just say we're getting, at minimum, we're getting close to 6 months. Meanwhile, Netflix is somehow putting out 32 pieces of new content every hour. I mean, I don't know how Netflix is pulling it off, but it seems like every single day. And that's part of the reason why they're so bad at marketing what it is they have on their network. But Netflix continues to crank out content every single effing day. And I'm not going to lie. Listen, you know I'm a big Disney fan. I like Disney very much. I'm very excited about Disney Plus, and I love The Mandalorian. But the fact of the matter is, in my estimation, they dropped the ball on their launch. And now granted, the COVID-19 thing came up, but even before that, a lot of people, a lot of fans of Disney had been a little bit grumbling. And I think that this move with Hamilton is a direct response to the fact that, number one, Disney's had no high profile stuff to come out. Couple pieces, but essentially over 5-6 months, they've got nothing to come out. But number two, their problem is compounded by the fact that right now, nothing's in production either. So it's not like they're ready to go. It's like, okay, July 1st, okay, restrictions are easing. Now we've got all this stuff to put out. No, they still won't have anything to put out because production shut down. So Rob, I look at this, and despite the fact that it was a big $75 million investment, I think this move of a year up and the move by putting it to Disney Plus is a pretty smart move, simply because this is a network that, while getting a lot of people's goodwill, like myself and a lot of you guys, 54 million of us have signed up for Disney Plus. 54 million of us signed up for Disney Plus. But the fact of the matter is, you are hearing the grumbling. I'm grumbling. And I'm still a member. I'm still signed up for it. I don't plan on canceling it anytime soon, but I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I'm thinking about it. Because while it's really cheap, I'm not getting anything. I think them moving this was a very shrewd move, a very smart move, but also a very desperate move at the same time, because they need to have something. And Rob, listen, taking the number one musical stage show in the world and putting it exclusive onto your streaming service, that maintains that shine a little bit. That maintains the shine a little bit. So while I do believe it's a move of desperation on their part, I also believe it's a pretty smart move. This is a high-profile project. It's global IP recognition. It's also just very, very good content. And this will make a splash. So desperate, yes. Smart, also yes. So I don't know, Rob, you heard this news. You took a look at this. What do you make of this whole thing?
Well, like you, I think it's a great move. Look, this is a marquee thing. The Hamilton is popular with all ages. It's definitely a 4-quadrant piece of entertainment, and I think that this is an exciting thing. And there's a lot of people, John, that haven't seen Hamilton, that have heard about it. It's become part of the pop culture lexicon, and now to put this out, people can watch it over and over and over again the way they listen to the album. And I think that it's. I would have done the same thing if I had Disney Plus, because this is something people can't get anywhere else. There's none of the other streaming platforms have anything like this. This is a 98-pound, or whatever you call it. This is a 108-pound gorilla. I mean, this is a huge piece of programming for them to drop, and I think there's going to be people to sign up to Disney Plus just to see this. I mean, it's certainly cheaper than tickets for the whole family, and I think it's a good move. And like you said, there wasn't a lot of post-production involved. I mean, sure, it'd have to be edited together and it'd have to be mixed, but I'm sure that was done fairly quickly, and it's probably been done for a while. So I think this is a great move, and we all win. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I can't wait.
And to compound on what you were just saying about the fact that, you can't go to a theater right now to see it. You can't go to a live show. I mean, that's the thing. If you want Hamilton, you can't go to a live production of it. You can't go to a movie theater to see it right now. And so, yeah, I think this is a pretty smart move in their point. And I think you're right. I think this is something that not only keeps the shine on Disney Plus for a little bit, it is a piece of content that will motivate some people who may not be on Disney Plus right now to sign up for Disney Plus. And that's a good move. But Rob, I got to tell you too, the more I thought about this situation with Disney Plus and the lack of content and whatever, I got to tell you, I give Netflix a hard time sometimes. The fact that they're the worst in the world at marketing their material, and I'm not a big fan of their original movie. They have some diamonds in the rough, for sure they do. But, overall, when you really sit down and look at how Disney Plus has been able to launch, for good or bad, when you look at the way Peacock has been rolling out, when you look at the coming out of the gate and falling on its face Quibi has done, you can't help but stop for a second and go, wow, Netflix really knows this business, because Netflix is constantly adding new content. They are just doing it right. And I think seeing other people trying it, it's kind of like the MCU, right? It's like, the MCU is great, but you don't really realize how good of a job the MCU has done until all the other studios try putting out comic book material. And it's like, wow, it really makes you appreciate just how good the MCU has been and what they've done. And seeing, I think for me, the struggles of a Disney Plus, the struggles of a CBS All Access, or whatever the hell they're going to be calling themselves, the struggles of a Quibi, the struggles of, I think HBO Max is going to do just fine. I think HBO Max is probably going to crush it because they've got some experience here. But all of this has really just made me appreciate, you know what? They're just the standard thing now, but holy crap, Netflix does a really good job. And they haven't left you and I in a lurch. Like, while this whole lockdown's been going on, they've continued to put out new content, because they just seem to have a production pipeline. 15 billion in debt. No, like, I'm not going to overlook that, but they just seem to have this production pipeline there. Guess what? We can hit a 3-month shutdown in production, and they still have oodles of production to give us.
Well, also, they're constantly dropping stuff from around the world. Like, there's a new show. Was it Into the Sun or something? It's Spanish or Danish. I don't even know what it was. I was watching some of it where sunlight kills people. So it's about this plane that's constantly flying in the darkness to try and escape the sun. And I started watching it. I'm like, I don't even know what this is. It just looked like a cool sci-fi premise. I got locked in. I'm like, I don't even know where this came from. But it showed up in my feed. I'm like, I'll watch that. And suddenly I'm watching something I'd never heard of before. There's a lot of that on Netflix. I mean, Netflix is great to just, if you're not doing anything and you're sitting around hanging out, you click on Netflix and just specifically look for something, the most obscure thing that you've never heard of. Like, if you want to find something science fiction related or horror related or fantasy related that you've never heard of before, it's on Netflix. And it usually is pretty good. And that's amazing. Whereas these other streaming services, you look for something new, there's nothing new. You know, now Hamilton's what? The only piece of new, there's no new Jeff Goldblum show. The Mandalorian documentary, to me, like we've talked about, has turned out to be kind of a huge disappointment in terms of what I wanted out of it. And I'm like, what's new on there? Am I going to watch 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea again?
Well, it's never a bad idea.
No, it's never a bad idea, but still. Oh, the black hole. Let's watch that again.
Anyway, guys, the question here for you is, what do you think about this move from Hamilton? Were you surprised to see about the move? Are you excited about it? Listen, I'm telling you, I know not everybody are Broadway show people. I am telling you, Hamilton is pretty special. Hamilton is really special. So when it does come out, I encourage you to check it out. So anyway, guys, give me your thoughts. Jump down into the comment section below and let me know what you guys think. All right. With that down, let's move on to this. You know, Rob, it was just maybe a week or two ago, we were talking about the fact that Christopher Nolan and Warner Brothers, at least for now, seems to have his back. Christopher Nolan seems hell-bent on making sure that his Tenet movie gets released on July 17th. Up until now, Warner Brothers has had his back on that and have been sticking with him and wanting to stick with that release date. By extension, they have also been pretty firm in keeping their Wonder Woman release date, which is only set for 1 month, roughly a month, right after Tenet. So they've been kind of holding firm on that. Now, any day now, Warner Brothers can come out and start really pushing a marketing campaign for Tenet, or they may come out and say, you know what, we're just not comfortable and we will pull it. But for now, the Warner Brothers line is, we're holding July 17th. And we're holding our August release date for Wonder Woman as well. So there's two. But you can add another movie to the one that it looks like they're going to keep it, because there was some question about whether or not Disney was going to move Mulan. Well, anything can change, but as of right now, Disney seems like they are actually pretty resolute. No, we're going to hold that release date. I mean, it can change. They're not betting their life on it, but they've just come out and reaffirmed that, no, we're looking at this release date. Now, this quote comes to us from the new CEO of Disney, Bob Chapek, or however you pronounce Bob's last name.
No, you were right, Chapek.
It's Chapek. Bob Chapek, the CEO, was being asked about it, and this is what he says. At Disney, we're a bunch of optimists. I think that's a good date for this title. Of course, they're looking at July 24th, 1 week after when Tenet is supposed to release. I think that's a good date for this title. You have to balance, this is actually very key what he says here. You have to balance people's anxieties about going out in public with their pent-up demand. And I love that he said that, because that's something I've been saying for a while, Rob. It's like, yes, you do have to understand that once they even do start opening theaters again, whenever that is, once they do, you are definitely and understandably going to get one segment of people that are going to be cautious, apprehensive about, easing back into going out and stuff. But at the same time, there's going to be a counterbalance to that there are a lot of people who are itching to get out and to go to these things again. So it's going to be a balance of those things. And I think Bob Chapek is pointing out here, we recognize that, yeah, there will be people that are going to be very cautious, but there's also a lot of pent up demand. People want to go to the movies. People want to get out. And obviously that doesn't take precedence over doing it safely and doing it right, of course. But if those cases present themselves, then we think this is a good date. Now, he goes on to discuss this a little bit more, and he says, in that particular case, talking about Mulan, I think that can be managed. I think it will be up to our exhibitors who we partner with. Exhibitors is the movie theaters. And Bob Chapek calls them their partners. In this particular case, I think that can be managed. I think it will be up to our exhibitors who we partner with. I think that is a very good release date, though, for that particular title. So, Rob, we get ourselves into a situation here where now we have Warner Brothers is saying, we're keeping July. And remember, we are still more than 2 months away from that. Like, we keep forgetting, I feel like we've been talking about July 17th for so long that it kind of feels like it's right around the corner. It's still over 2 months away. Yeah. It is still over 2 months away. We got to remember that. And who knows what the world is going to look like in 2 months. But Warner Brothers is holding on to that date for Tenet. They are currently holding on to that date for about a month later with Wonder Woman. And now Disney comes out and says, yeah, as of right now, our plan is still to release this movie on that date. Rob, you and I have discussed that at some point, it's good to say you're holding on to those dates, but at some point you have to pull the trigger, open up the bank accounts, and release a ton of marketing money to really start marketing those things. Right now, that seems like a gamble. But how long can you wait? How long can you wait before raising awareness, starting the marketing push, getting the buzz engine going? How long can you wait to do that? At some point, these studios are going to have to move from saying, we are resolute in releasing on these dates, to actually backing it up and start marketing these damn things, which raises the question, is it even a good idea that they are entertaining these dates? Because I'll tell you this, as a film fan, I love that Warner Brothers is saying we're keeping July 17th for Tenet. I love it. I love that Disney's now saying we're going to keep July 24th for Mulan, because I've been dying to see both of these movies. I love that they're saying Wonder Woman 84 is still going to come out in its August release date. I love that on the one hand, the film fan side of me. On the other side is July going to be too soon? And we've talked a lot about that too. Is July going to be too soon? Are we getting too close? 2 months out still, but are we getting too close where they can't just make it theoretical anymore? They've got to pull the trigger and do something on this. So Rob, let me put this over to you. You now see Disney getting on board with this. You're seeing Warner Brothers and Disney now saying we've got these early release dates. We're holding on to them. But can these movies actually come out on these dates as a lot of us are hoping for? How are you seeing this whole situation?
Well, it's really dependent on what happens with the reopening of the economy. I mean, obviously, there's 2 months. It's poised to work. Like, I think now it's the right decision because you're still 2 months away from the opening of Tenet, so they can still advertise the heck out of it. But let's face it, the economy is just starting to open up, and there's no telling how it's going to go. Is there going to be massive flare-ups with COVID-19? Are they going to realize that we've gone too far too fast? I mean, they're finding out in South Korea, they've reopened the economy. There's flare-ups. It'll really depend how that all goes with the economy. I mean, our economy has to open. We can't stay closed forever. So I think assuming that the economy reopens effectively, and they're able to manage what's going on, I think they've got 2 months. I mean, they're poised to do a great job with all three of these movies. And John, I want to see all three of them. And like you said, I want to go back to the movie theaters. And it's still, Tenet doesn't open for a little over 2 months. That's a long time. I mean, look at where we are. It hasn't even been 2 months since we've been locked down. So there's a whole nother 2 months to go before the movie opens. So a lot can happen. And we'll know where we're going. Dude, I just want to see Tenet, man. I'm so excited to see this movie. I mean, look, if I have to wear a hazmat suit and a rebreather, as long as I have enough oxygen that'll get me through the entire movie, if that's what I have to do, that's what I'll do. I want to see this movie. I want to see this movie in IMAX. I want to see it on Hollywood Boulevard, which is probably not the place that I want to go the most in California right now. But if I can get into that Chinese theater, man, woohoo, bring it on.
So, but then it raises the question, though. The time, 2 months is such an eternity right now.
I know.
But at what point, there has to be a cutoff date. Because I remember, it's not just, they can't just make a decision about this the week before, because there is the whole marketing aspect. So now we're seeing this is no longer just Tenet. Now we've got this triumvirate of three big, highly anticipated movies. In Christopher Nolan's Tenet, in Mulan, in Wonder Woman 84. Where is that line? Where's that cutoff date? Where is that drop dead moment where it's like, if you're going to do this, you have to actually start moving on it and start pouring in marketing numbers by this date. Now, the one saving grace they have is because there are no other movies out, you can probably shrink that window a little bit because you're not competing with the marketing of 25 other films at the moment. So you can probably shrink that window a little bit instead of your normal 3 months out, which we're already closer than 3 months. So you're not fighting with a lot of other marketing. That's good. That's working in their favor. But there still has to be a cutoff date. Rob, you are both CEO of Disney and Warner Brothers. Somehow, in a massive power move, they both just realized we both need Robert Meyer Burnett as our CEO. Where do you tell your generals at this point, we have to make a decision by this date? When do you see that date being that they've got to just, as my father would say, shit or get off the pot? When do you see that date?
Well, look, the real thing is, the question is, are people going to feel safe going back to the movie theaters? Are they going to feel safe? All indications are they open Shanghai Disneyland, people are going. People are going out to the beaches. People are going to restaurants or wherever they've opened. It really depends. Are people going to feel safe going to movie theaters? And the thing is, we don't know because movie theaters aren't open. So the prospect of going to the movies, we're not going to know. So I would say I would split it into 15-day increments. I would say, look, we have to decide whether we're going to do this. Our cutoff is June 1st. We need 6 weeks to market these movies, period. But then I would say, if we decide on June 1st that we're going to light this candle, then we're still going to have to look every 15 days leading up to that, because Tenet is probably going to be the first. Is it who opens first, Mulan or Tenet?
Tenet.
Do you know?
Tenet opens first on the 17th. Mulan
So
theoretically
right.
opens the week later on the 24th.
So I would say June 1st, you're 6 weeks out. So I would start ramping up my advertising next week. You know, I'd start dipping. There's people are watching TV. There's no better time to advertise. And I'm sure by this time they've got some kick-ass TV spots for this movie, both Mulan and Tenet. I mean, Mulan was going to open, so they've already got all their advertising material ready to go. Yeah, I'm sure Tenet does too, but I would start ramping up the advertising. The spigot would turn on Friday, this May 15th, my birthday. And then every 15 days after that, they'd have to decide. But by June 1st, you're either going to light the candle or not. And then after that, I mean, up to June 15th, if you get past June 15th and things look good, that's it. You're going. I think June 15th is the absolute cutoff date for when you turn off the spigot. You're still a month out. You know, you've ramped up all you can, but if it doesn't look good, you've still got a month to pull back, and you haven't blown your entire wad, but you've shot enough out that people are like, that movie looks kick-ass. But I mean, you've got to at least do enough advertising where awareness is built. So you're going to go from May 15th to June 15th. June 1st is when you're like going to decide to light this candle, and then June 15th would be your abort. The rockets are fueled and the engines are firing. You can still abort at June 15th, but then you've got enough awareness out that your marketing dollars haven't been totally wasted, because people are like, I want to see that. So, and that would last for 6 months. You know, you can dine on that, but it's got to be a saturation marketing campaign. So that's how I would do it. Start this Friday, decide June 1st if you're going to light this candle, and then go full bore. And by June 15th, there's your abort button. But if you go past June 15th, you're opening.
Right. Now, of course, all this is dependent on the movie theaters saying, yeah, we'll open our doors.
Yep, that's true.
Because if the movie theaters say we're not opening our doors, that kind of solves the problem, doesn't it? You don't even have to worry about it anymore. All right. The question here is, guys, for you. What do you think about the fact that now we have 2 major studios with 3 major films all saying they're going to be opening within this month or so window of Tenet, Mulan, and Wonder Woman 84? Do you think they're going to be able to make that? And when do they need to make a real commitment by spending the advertising dollars to start moving on this? I want to know what you guys think. It's the biggest issue in the world in movies right now, to be honest with you. Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. Listen, with that stuff down and out of the way, we're going to just go right into live questions here today. A bunch of you guys have been sending in the live questions, and there's 2 ways you can send those in. The best way is by using the tip link, which you can see in the top line of the description of this video. And that is simply streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. That is the best way. You can send it in, all that kind of stuff. Now, if you can't do it that way, you can use the super chat feature here on YouTube, which you can see in the side there. All right. With that down, guys, we're going to start going through all the tip questions first from the tip link. So let's jump over and start getting into these. And the first one we've got coming in here today comes to us from Anthony, who tipped $50. Thank you so much for supporting the channel on that level, Anthony. We really appreciate it. And listen, since it's $50 or more, if there's a question here, we're going to answer your question now, and we're going to answer it in its own standalone video in the next couple of weeks. So keep your eyes open for that. All right, Anthony writes, I'm not too thrilled with the High Republic. I'd rather go to the future Star Wars with uncertainty and see a new Jedi Order 100 to 200 years after Episode 9. I like that idea. Over under 30%, we get to that point. Also, what are the chances for the Knights of the High Republic game? All right, Rob, you know, they've been talking about the High Republic era. That is where Star Wars is focusing a lot of their storytelling right now. We saw that video about their writer's room, basically, of creating all this stuff for the High Republic. I didn't love what I was seeing, but there is potential there. I'm somebody who I prefer stories moving forward in time. I don't generally like going back, but if you're going to go back at least a few hundred years, so it's not handcuffed to the events of the movies we already know, then I'm okay with it. I am okay with the High Republic, with them trying High Republic stuff. I mean, I've got my feelings on how it looks so far, but the reality is I haven't seen anything yet. I haven't seen any of their actual product yet. So I'm going to remain optimistic. It's a very good writer's room they put together, including Claudia Gray, who wrote some tremendous Star Wars novels, including my second favorite Star Wars novel, which is Lost Stars. So they've got a good pedigree of talent in there. But I got to tell you, I prefer that idea of saying Star Wars Episode 10 in 2023, and it picks up 80 years after the events of Episode 9. And so you bring in Betty White to play Rey, which I think would be, come on, Betty White playing Rey, 80 years in the future. And it's now, you have the new, I guess we have to call it the new Republic. The new Republic is established. There are new threats in the galaxy. There is a reestablished Jedi Order that looks a little different. I prefer that idea, but I'm okay with what they're doing with High Republic. What do you think?
Well, like you, the High Republic can be interesting to me, but this idea of going backwards, what that is, it feels like it's an in continuity reboot, in that they're going to go back in time and they're going to tell us a whole new Star Wars story based on whatever they've come up with, as opposed to whatever was already established. And when you move forward, you take what was already established and build from that. So there's a familiarity. But when you go back to the High Republic, I think what we're going to get is an amalgamation of a bunch of other stuff that isn't necessarily Star Wars. You'll get lightsabers and you'll get the technology, but they're going to make it whatever they want to make it as it's of today, as opposed to looking back at the 43-year history of what Star Wars is. So I prefer moving forward, because I don't want to see Star Wars turn out. I know you like Star Trek Discovery, but Star Trek Discovery is supposed to be canonical and adjacent to the original series of Star Trek, and it just isn't. And so the High Republic going back in time, if it feels like Star Wars, okay. But if it's just set in the Star Wars universe and it feels modern, or it's an amalgamation of everything else from Lord of the Rings to Harry Potter to take your pick, and Star Wars is the last thing they're basing it on, then it gets a little like, this doesn't really feel like Star Wars. But I'll wait and see. I liked Shadows of the Empire when they did that whole business. And if they're following that lead, it was a multimedia event without a movie. It had toys and video games and books and all that. I liked it, and I liked the N64 game quite a bit. So if it's like that, cool. But like you, I would love to see, where is the Star Wars universe? Where does it go from here? Is it just perpetually? Is there going to be a first order, or the first next order, or whatever? Is the Empire going to rise again, and do they fight that battle perpetually, or do you get something like
Vong, buddy? Yeah, the Yuzang Vong.
The Yuzang Vong was awesome. I love that. I love that idea. And I don't think they would do that, but it'd be cool. Just I love saying Yuzang Vong just because it sounds cool. But I would like to see what happens next.
All right, let's keep moving on here. John Campea writes, Hugh Jackman and Keanu Reeves are regularly listed as two of the most genuinely nice people in Hollywood, and they are. Do you, Rob or Aaron, have any stories of actors/actresses who left a strong impression on you as truly nice people, or even the opposite, love the show? Well, I won't talk about the opposite. Yes, I've had a couple of experiences with celebrities who weren't so nice, but I never like to judge somebody based on one experience where you might have just caught them in a bad moment or in a bad day. So that's whatever. To me, there are two names that really come to mind for me of just extraordinarily nice people. I mean, Helen Mirren was one. I mean, there's a lot of names I could mention, but two that really stand out. One to me was, but I'm biased to this, is Milo Ventimiglia from This Is Us. And of course, he was in Heroes. He was Peter Petrelli, because he is responsible for me meeting my wife. I mean, he invited Anne to be at this party that I was throwing for him and this movie that he had just done. And because he invited her along, I got to meet her that night, and we've been together ever since. So I have but seriously, Milo is one of the biggest sweetheart guys I have ever met. He's a tremendously nice guy. The other is Chris Pratt. I first met Chris Pratt when he came into studio, him and Vince Vaughn came into my studio because they were doing a movie together called The Delivery Man. And so they both came into studio and they both hung out with Dan and then they sat down, we did this interview, and then they hung out in our offices for 2 hours because they asked, hey, if we come and do this video, this interview at your office, can we then hang out in your office for a couple hours we're supposed to do this live Twitter interaction thing afterwards. And I said, yeah, sure. And they just hung out in our offices for 2 hours. And listen, Vince Vaughn was also wonderful, by the way. Vince Vaughn was so cool to be around. But Chris Pratt was super sweet, super nice, all that kind of stuff. Then fast forward a year or two, a couple of years, he comes into studio again. Him and Kevin Feige and James Gunn come into studio to do this special live stream that we did talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. This was a couple of months before it came out. And again, Chris could not have been cooler. He was just engaging and it was like he was coming up to me all like the whole evening and say, hey, what do you think about this? And blah, blah, blah. And it was just awesome to see. But here's the thing about Chris Pratt. Now fast forward like a year later. Okay. Oh yeah, no, it was more than a few months before it came out. It was like a year before Guardians of the Galaxy came out. So fast forward like forever later. Remember, these celebrities, they meet and talk to about 50 different press people every day. Every day. So I don't expect anybody to remember me or anything like that. But anyway, Guardians of the Galaxy is coming out, Rob. And I go to do the press junket. This is back when I still did press junkets. So I go to do the press junket and I'm waiting for my turn to go into the room with Chris Pratt. And the door opens and I walk in and there's normally a PR person that introduces you to the star. She goes, okay, so this is, and Pratt goes, John. And I'm like, holy crap. Like when somebody remembers your name, that tells me that when you were talking to them before, they were really invested in talking to you. They wanted to make the person they were talking to be the center of their attention. And the fact that Chris Pratt did that just impressed me to no end. Like I walk in, it's like, John. I'm like, wow, hi, Chris. And sat down. And then he goes, by the way, and he paused for a moment. He goes, how's Ann doing? How's Ann doing? He remembered my wife's name. So one of my favorite stories is I come out of that meeting with Pratt and I immediately pick up my phone and I text Ann. I said, I walked into the room with Chris Pratt and the first thing he asked was, how's Ann doing? And Ann just freaked out. Ann just completely freaked. But anyway, those are two of the nicest, sweetest, coolest people I've had a chance to meet doing this stuff. Rob, you've got to meet, being on all the sets you've been on, you got to meet an awful lot of people. Who would you say stands out to you as like the sweetest, nicest celebrity you've got to be around?
There's actually quite a few. Like in my time doing DVD special editions, I did a lot of long form interviews with people, where you'd sit down with them for hours at a time. The entire cast of The Next Generation was delightful. But I think of all the people that I've met, there were two that really stood out to me. One was Jeff Bridges. What it was for Tron. I called, first of all, we got in touch with him and he was like, yeah, man, I'd love to talk about Tron, and we went up and met him in Santa Barbara and we got a conference room at Fess Parker's hotel up there. And he just comes in. That guy couldn't have been nicer, more excited to be there. I mean, he was so cool and so fun and so present. He didn't have to do it. We had no PR people. He didn't bring anybody. He just showed up himself. He was just that's it, man, right there. That's what he was like. And another person was Hugh Jackman. When he walked in the room, when I interviewed him, that guy exudes charisma. I mean, he walks into the room and he was he was amazing. He just lights up a room, and you can't not be in his presence and feel better about yourself. And I'll tell you somebody else, the third person that I couldn't believe. I ended up one morning, I was going to see a screening of the movie Valkyrie that Bryan Singer had directed, and I'm waiting there, and I got there early. Who rolls in? Tom Cruise, Katie Holmes, and Suri. So it was just me, Mary, my friend Sean, and Tom Cruise, Katie Holmes, and Suri, like in this room at Laser Pacific in Hollywood, and it's just us. I'm like, I took the opportunity. I'm like, hey man, I'd never met Tom Cruise before. And he was at first he's like, well, who are you guys? He was maybe a little apprehensive, but then I explained to him that I was there for the screening and I was Brian's documentarian, and he was like, oh wow. And he started talking, and I asked him, I said, let me ask you something, because I figured Tom Cruise is here. I said, do you had impeccable taste in your projects. And I said, do you pick your projects based on the filmmaker or the material, or is it a combination of the two? And he stops and he looks at me and he's like, that's a great question. And we ended up talking for an hour. And I just spoke extemporaneously about his entire career, like off the top of my head. He couldn't believe that I knew so much about his career. That guy was so engaged and so nice. And once he knew that I was asking him these questions about his career and choices he'd made, and that I could rattle off the movies he was in, for an hour, that guy was so present with me. And it was funny because as we talked, people started to come in, and Brian just was sitting there looking. He stood right between the two of us and was kind of like listening. And Tom Cruise was like, I like talking to this guy. And Brian's like, it's his way. He'll get you to talk to him. And it was fantastic. That was the only time but all three of those people, Tom Cruise, Jeff Bridges, and Hugh Jackman, all were amazing people to talk to. And they impressed me to no end.
All right. Nice stories, man. I like that. All right. Next one up. Ian Carthers writes, hey, John, if Amazon were to purchase AMC, they could use their grab and go like they have in their stores for the concession line. This would save people time, and post-pandemic, this would reduce the amount of time spent in large groups. Yeah, so I was talking about this the other day. Amazon's got this grab and go technology that they've been utilizing in some of their brick and mortar stores, where when you enter the store, you scan your Amazon Prime membership. So now it knows you're here. And then their sensor technology in their stores can tell when you've picked something off the shelves. And then you don't even have to go in line. Once you've picked everything up, you just walk out. And it'll just automatically charge your Amazon Prime account. You just walk in, grab it, and leave. No concession, no cashier line, nothing. You just go. Now, there are, for instance, the AMC Theater at Universal City Walk. They've got kind of a modified version of that where you still have to get in line and pay for it. But basically their setup is, and Rob, I don't know if you've been to that AMC before. Yeah. At Universal City Walk. They've changed their concessions now where you walk in and they've got just popcorn, soda, everything out. It's all self-serve. You just walk around, grab what it is you want. Now, then you still have to go get in one line to pay for it, but you're not standing in that line where you go get in line just to wait to get to the cashier. Then you get to the cashier, you say, okay, I want popcorn, soda, and I don't know, M&Ms. Now you got to wait there another 30 seconds to a minute while that staff person runs around and gets everything. And meanwhile, that 30 seconds to a minute is another 30 seconds to a minute that everybody in line behind you has to stand there and wait. And so it creates this huge line. But at the AMC at Universal City Walk, it just goes. Even if you get into a line with 7 people, but you've already got your soda and popcorn, you're through that line in like a minute. Because all people have to do is just, here's what I got, pay, go. It's it. It's a really nice system. But you're right. If AMC were to buy them, implement that pay and go system where you don't even have to talk to a cashier at all, free up those staff people to make sure all the items are stocked and everything's fresh and everything's there for people, it would be great, man. All right, listen, Thanos for President writes, really curious, in Earth 2, how glorious was Halle Berry's Oscar acceptance speech for Catwoman? She must have thanked you. And how great was her cameo in the 2020 Best Picture Cats? Gives me chills just thinking about it. Cap who? Mjolnir what? Yeah, a lot of crazy stuff. I keep trying to think of different things to mention about what's going on in Earth 2 from time to time. But some Halle Berry, by the way, Halle Berry was featured on the UFC that they just had because she's doing this stuff with the UFC right now, which is really cool. She's a huge mixed martial arts fan, which just makes me an even bigger fan of Halle Berry. Right, Willow writes, so why didn't you end up buying stocks in AMC? Were you nervous about the investment or were you just lazy? Lazy. Yep. Thank God my wife wasn't, because Anne did buy a bunch of stocks in AMC.
She did?
She did. She bought a bunch of stocks in AMC when it was at $2.08. So hold a second. Let me see where it's at. Let me see where AMC stock is right now. It was at $2.08 when she bought it. It's now at $5.56. It's more than doubled since she did. So I was not wise enough to jump on it. And then it was just the other day that I woke up in the morning. She goes, "Oh, AMC stock went up to like whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, but I forgot to buy it." She goes, "Oh, no, I didn't wait for you. I bought a bunch of it." I'm like, "Sweet." So, yeah, but for me, it was really just laziness, Rob. It was just laziness.
I thought about it and I was like, but I didn't. I think it's still a good bet. Remember, at one point it was up to $14. So
yeah, less than a year ago.
Yeah.
And if you think it took a jump just by the rumor of AMC buying them, wait till the day they announce that they're opening back up. When they announce they're opening back up, I think, I'm no stock expert, I don't know, but my guess is you're going to see their stock price jump like another buck. So
at least, I mean, that's the whole thing. It's all of these. There's bargains to be had now.
There are bargains to be had. I like that. All right.
To be had.
Next one up here. A man named Pooh Bear writes, my top 5 trilogies. Number 1, The Godfather. Number 2, The Lord of the Rings. Number 3, the John Wick series. Number 4, Toy Story. And number 5, the original Star Wars movies. Personal think that The Godfather, Toy Story 3, and The Empire Strikes Back being basically perfect films. I mean, listen, it's a really... Talking as more trilogies get made, the topic of the greatest trilogies becomes more and more interesting. To me, it's still Star Wars. That's it. Then it's Godfather. Then it's Lord of the Rings, which are very, very close. Actually, Godfather and Lord of the Rings could jump back and forth with each other. Then it's probably Toy Story, which a lot of people... Rob, I find like you mentioned Toy Story and greatest trilogies. It's like, oh yeah, I wouldn't even think about that. But it is truly one of the greatest trilogies of all time. If you don't count the fourth, it's one of the greatest trilogies of all time. It's like a 98% Rotten Tomatoes, 100% Rotten Tomatoes, and 100% Rotten Tomatoes. And beloved and glorious and all that kind of stuff. Rob, if you had to say your like top 1 or 2 trilogies of all time, what would you say they are?
Well, I would go Lord of the Rings. I mean, honestly. And I would have to say, even though the third part is a disappointment, I would have to say The Godfather, because I love Godfather 1 and 2 so much that Godfather 3 to me is good enough that I think it could survive that. But in terms of my enjoyment, the how enriched I feel whenever I watch movies, the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Godfather trilogy leave me that way. And
remember, all 3 were nominated for Best Picture, and 2 of them won.
Yeah.
Like no other trilogy had all 3 films nominated for Best Picture. Oh, yeah, no, I take that back. Lord of the Rings did too.
Yeah.
I mean, except Godfather 1, 2, Lord of the Rings 1, 1. So
and those are my favorite.
Powerhouse films, man. Powerhouse films. All right, next up. The Dan Man writes, hey, John and Rob, on another Earth, say that the DCEU launched with a film in 2008 instead of the MCU's Iron Man. They said DCEU film put them on the trajectory to match the success of the MCU as we know it today. However, the MCU struggled to find its footing just as the DCU did on our Earth. Curious to know whether or not you guys would have rather experienced this. I love both properties, but I would. DC has my heart. Thanks. Oh, I don't care. I don't care. See, here's the thing. I would have preferred both of them came out strong and both of them succeeded on the same level. That's what I would have preferred. But when it comes to, would I rather corporate overlord master number 1 have success or corporate overlord master number 2 have the success? I don't care. All I care about is who's giving me good movies. That's all I care about. I don't care whether it's this brand or that brand or whatever. I really don't care. And particularly when you're talking about comic book movies, I just love comic book movies. I just want good comic book movies delivered. Now, Rob, I'm lucky in the sense that I more than enjoyed. I freaking love Man of Steel. And I enjoyed Batman versus Superman. And I enjoyed Justice League. And I really like Wonder Woman. And, so I'm lucky in the fact that I did enjoy those films. For the most part, though, the DCU films, I don't think even the most diehard of DC fans will argue the fact that MCU had much more success. But I really don't care which one did it and which. If you're going to tell me one's going to struggle, one's going to do great, which one do you want? I'd say I don't care. I just want good movies. That's really all I care about. But Rob, it's an interesting situation. What if, DC had come out of the gate strong and established themselves first, and Marvel kind of stumbled coming out of the gate? Like, would that have been something preferable, or how do you see it?
I don't know. To me, look, again, like you, I just want to see good movies. And I really enjoyed Man of Steel. I thought the tone, it was very different than a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. And I would have liked to have seen I mean, look, you know me, I really loved Aquaman. I think I liked it a lot more than you because it was so bonkers. I looked at it and I'm like, this movie is straight up just balls to the wall fantasy. It was way different than what Marvel was doing. And I think what was unfortunate was that there was an idea that there was competition at all. I think that the people that were making the DC movies should never. I mean, they couldn't because of the amount of money that was being made across the street over at Marvel, but they should have concentrated on building their own universe their way rather than we got to make a Justice League movie because we have to compete with what Marvel was doing. They didn't do what Marvel was doing. They didn't lay the groundwork or the foundation. They did not earn the success that the Marvel Cinematic Universe earned because the people that were running the studio at the time, like Kevin Tsujihara, was chasing after these big bucks thinking, well, all we have to do is make a Justice League movie and we'll make a Batman v Superman movie and throw Wonder Woman in. We're going to make as much money as the MCU is going to make. That's not how anything works. And I think that was a big mistake. So if the DCEU would come out first, they would have concentrated on building their own brand identity in a unique way that was theirs, rather than try and be Johnny-come-latelys and chase success that was always going to elude them because they weren't doing what Marvel was doing in the first place, which was building a strong foundation before they started teaming up superheroes and making all that money, or the money they didn't make.
Now, I disagree with you on that. I mean, you and I have different philosophies on that because I think in that the underlying point that we agree on is that you start with a strong foundation.
Yeah.
See, I believe you can build a strong foundation with a team-up movie out of the gate. A strong foundation is built on quality, It's
Sure.
It's built on quality characters,
I
quality
don't disagree
movies.
with you.
Yeah. And I think we agree on that. I just don't see that. I don't believe that the Marvel formula of solo film, team, solo film, team, I that works for them, and that's great. But I don't think that's the only thing that works. Like Avatar, again, you didn't need a solo Sam Worthington movie, and then you didn't need a solo Stephen Lang movie. They just did Avatar. All the characters, boom, go. And Robert, the more I think about it, because you and I have talked about this before too, the more I think about what the DCU could have been if that Justice League script, that was it, Justice League Mortal?
Justice League Mortal, yeah.
If that movie had been made, and I just think, again, because my whole argument, you go back to Guardians of the Galaxy, you didn't need a Star-Lord solo movie and then a Gamora solo movie and then a Drax solo movie and then do Guardians. No, they were able to do Guardians, but they made a good movie, a movie that everybody rallied around. And as much as I love Man of Steel, they came out and they did a solo film first. They did Man of Steel. They did a Superman solo movie first. And too many people didn't appreciate it for the genius that movie is. But that notwithstanding, it's just, but I think you're absolutely right. What Kevin Tsujihara did, like, he was a brilliant studio executive, except for when it came to the comic book and genre space. When it came to the comic book nerd space, he had some kind of blinders on, because instead of doing what they did with a lot of their other properties, which is, what is our identity? What is our plan? Whether it looks like Marvel's or is completely different than Marvel's, whatever. What's our plan? And let's follow our game plan. Kevin Tsujihara did exactly what you just described. He went into chase mode. Let's chase after Marvel. Look, how do we do what Marvel's doing?
Right.
And they did it and I think that analysis you just gave was perfectly on the money. That's exactly what they did, which was so out of character for him, what he was doing with his other stuff with Warner Brothers. But when it came to that stuff, it was just this, let's just react to Marvel. That's what it was. It wasn't our own plan. It wasn't Warner Brothers having a plan. It was, let's just react to Marvel and let's play catch up to Marvel, instead of just, whether that meant doing a solo Batman, solo Superman, solo Wonder Woman, solo then Justice League, or whether it meant coming out of the gate, our identity is going to be this. Let's come out of the gate, first film, Justice League. Let's come out strong like that and then spin off individual films from that. Whatever their plan would have been, it at least would have been their plan, you know? And I think you're so right about that. They didn't have their plan. Their plan was, let's stare into Marvel's brake lights and just follow them along in the fog. And let's see if we can pick up, see if we can enjoy the same success that they are. And it just, it's frustrating.
To me, like, I find things to like in Batman v Superman, but the real problem that I have is that you really needed to have a Batman movie first and give us a taste of who that Batman was, because we already had Man of Steel. And I'm like, I want to know who Batman is. They could have established, because the Batman we meet, the Ben Affleck Batman, has been around for a long time. He's kind of gone a bit off the rails. It would have been nice to see how he got there, and the conflict could have been teased if that was the third movie. It was the culmination of these. It could have worked really, really well. And I thought, it's not just Batman v Superman. It's like, let's put in Wonder Woman. Now let's put in Doomsday. And there's all this stuff. And I'm like, I want to see a Batman movie and learn who these people are. I like the addition of Wonder Woman if it was a third film. And I just thought that Batman v Superman just was overstuffed. And while the Ultimate Edition is, I think, worth watching, there's just too much stuff happening. And you're like, wait a minute. I want to see more of Superman because he's not in that movie enough. And I want to know more about how Batman got the way he is in this movie. And I thought that was a mistake. I just thought it was a mistake. Again, they're trying to go after, they want their cake and eat it too.
All right, let's keep moving on here. Dropkick Aggie writes, just finished my first watch of what will be many of Parks and Rec, one of my favorite shows of all time. I love that show to no end. Speaking of Chris Pratt, the humor and writing is consistently great. Ron Swanson is the greatest sitcom character of all time. Was not expecting to cry time at the finale, and the finale was great. It was very weird and different. Actually, the entire final season was a little weird because they time jumped. They went from the end of the second last season, and then the next season, the final season, picks up like 3 or 4 or 5 years later. I can't remember exactly how long. So it was a little weird, but it still had all that charm and all that character. And Dropkick, I'm glad you got on that show because I just adore Parks and Rec. All right, Selma McShave writes, in these days of gigantic budget movies, I'm amazed at the individual Lord of the Rings movies. All were done for less than $100 million each. Yeah. It is crazy. But Rob, I think a part of that, you'd have to attribute at least a little bit of that to the fact that they knew, they went all in, right? Like when they were going to do Lord of the Rings, they just, normally what a studio would do is, okay, let's get the first one made and let's make sure it's going to work before we, invest in the second one. New Line just jumped in wholeheartedly, both feet, and said, yep, we're greenlighting all 3. Go shoot all 3 at the same time, because you gotta know that helped their budget quite a bit. Like that, how important was that decision on their part to actually just shoot all the movies back to back?
Dude, first of all, it was the biggest risk, I think, in Hollywood history. And, they were only going to ever make 2 movies at first. When Peter Jackson made his presentation to Bob Shea, it was 2 movies. When they first were going to do it with Miramax, Miramax gave up the rights, and Peter Jackson had to shop them around. And he was actually in a room with Bob Shea doing this presentation. All the other studios turned him down. And when the lights came up after the presentation, Bob Shea said, wait a minute, aren't there 3 Lord of the Rings books? And for whatever reason, he made this decision to go all in. I think it was one of the ballsiest. He bet his whole studio. He bet New Line on this. And the fact that they went all in, and remember, Fellowship turned out well, but when they were in the late stages of production of Two Towers, it was a mess. The movie didn't work. Like when they were in London scoring Two Towers, the end, Peter Jackson decided to show the Battle of Isengard when the Ents attacked, and they intercut that battle with what was going on at the end of Two Towers. And it was, they made decisions up until the 11th hour to make those movies as good as they could be. And it was a risk that paid off. But man, I don't understand, John, why that model hasn't been followed for other trilogies. Like especially the new Star Wars trilogy that Disney did. Why wouldn't you plan all 3 movies and just shoot all 3 of them? And I don't get it.
Well, that's 2 different things, right? Because I think those are 2 important things. Like plan all, because if you were Star Wars, you could have planned all 3 and then shot them one at a time if you wanted to. But that was the biggest criticism that a lot of people, including myself, and I like almost all the films in the Disney Star Wars catalog, but they had no plan. And fine, don't shoot them all at once. Fine, you want to do the first one, make sure there's still a love for Star Wars, make sure people are still going to come out. Okay, fine. But man, no plan. That's the thing. But they had the plan and they pulled the trigger all at the same time. What was the last one? What's the last set of films that shot them back to back? I know Matrix 2 and 3 did. I'm trying to remember. I think a couple of Pirates films did. I think I could be wrong about that.
I think 2 and 3 were made concurrently. 2 and 3, and then I think like the final Hunger Games movie, maybe
the last two. I cannot remember. Part 1 and part 2. Yeah, they might have. I can't remember. Oh, but it is a big, ballsy, and expensive wager. Like when you greenlight and shoot all 3, it's a big risk. So I get it, but man, there's going to be stories to tell about that Lord of the Rings situation for a long time. All right, Augie Boyes writes, rent one. Buy one, rent one, lose one. Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame. To me, that's pretty easy. Buy Avengers, rent Infinity War, lose Endgame. Don't get me wrong. I hate losing Endgame. I do. But if I have to pick one, it's that. Infinity War was just too great of a true, self-contained, complete movie. Beginning, middle, and end with the ballsy ending of the bad guy winning. I would really love to keep Endgame, but if I have to lose one, that's when I lose. Rob, buy one, rent one, lose one. Where do you put it?
Oh my God, I don't know. Buy one, rent one, lose one. Do I have to lose one?
Yeah, that's the thing. Of course, I wouldn't have picked to lose any, but yes, you have to pick one to lose.
Now, what are my choices here, John? Let's see.
Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame.
No, I've got to keep Infinity War. I mean, I buy Infinity War. And, God, what are my choices? Infinity War.
The first Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame.
You know what, dude? This is tough. I'm going to sell the first Avengers.
Really?
Yeah. You know why? I'll tell you why. I'm these choices, I'm like, why is Age of Ultron not in this? But because I think Avengers in Infinity War, when I saw Infinity War for the first time, the fact that it works, the fact that it has so many characters and they're from so many different tonalities. And like when I saw Tony Stark talk to Doctor Strange at the beginning of that movie, I'm like, I can't believe I'm seeing this. Now I felt that way with the first Avengers, but Infinity War was a level that was so much higher. And I think that Infinity War and Endgame work as well as they do. I find those movies to be infinitely enjoyable. So my choices, I can't. So I have to sell. I'm going to keep Infinity War. Do I have to rent Endgame? Is that what it is?
Buy one, rent one, sell one.
Okay. Okay. Then I got to get rid of the first Avengers because, to me, Infinity War and Endgame just blow the doors off. They're to me, they're so huge and big and delightful and gooey and delicious. I gotta get them.
I still think the first Avengers is the best one, but more importantly, in this case, there is no Infinity War Endgame without the first Avengers, so that's why I go with that. But there's no right answer here. There's no right answer.
What are my choices again?
All right, we got to keep moving here. We got to keep moving. All right, Kristen Bell writes, I'm a huge Kristen Bell fan. No kidding. What is your favorite Kristen Bell movie project, and what is your favorite series she has been in? That's actually easy for me on both fronts. Forgetting Sarah Marshall is a top 10 favorite comedy for me ever. That movie gets better every time you see it. I love that movie. And my favorite Kristen Bell, well, she was a recurring character on Parks and Rec. So that makes it really easy for me, Parks and Rec. Rob, favorite Kristen Bell movie, favorite Kristen Bell series?
Forgetting Sarah Marshall for sure, but my favorite Kristen Bell series is absolutely Veronica Mars.
All right. And my wife would probably say, well, no, I know my wife would say The Good Place. So the three of us would have three different TV answers.
Can I change my other question?
Sure.
I think you're right. I'm going to have to make Avengers. That's got to be the first one. I got to.
Oh, we're going back to that question. I thought you were changing your answer about Kristen Bell.
No. I'm stuck.
Okay.
On it.
All right. No, there's no wrong answer in that one. All right. Next one. There's also no right answer for that one. Dr. Manhattan's brother writes, who would win between Taki Tina in Twilight Zone and Zuni Fetish doll of Trilogy of Terror? I'm always a Taki Tina. Nothing else scared me. Taki Tina scares me.
Dude,
Taki
the
Tina
Zuni Fetish doll from Trilogy of Terror is the scariest doll ever. Zuni would kick Chucky's ass.
There's something about the subtlety of Taki Tina, though. I'm Taki Tina, and I'm going to kill you. I'm like, nope. Just a whole truckload of nope.
Dude, Trilogy of Terror, when I was a little kid, man, I was terrified of the Zuni fetish doll. It was so scary.
All right, let's see here. WWDITS writes, leave me to my dark bidding on the internet. What are you bidding on? I'm bidding on a table. What we do in the shadows, lead me to my dark bidding. What are you bidding on? And that's the movie. That's the What We Do in the Shadows movie, if I'm not mistaken. By the way, if you have not seen, I know I say this all the time, dear heavens, guys, if you have not watched What We Do in the Shadows, the only reason you know Taika Waititi's name, because that movie is what got Taika Waititi all the other gigs that came afterwards.
Oh, so good.
Watch and then go and watch the TV show. Then watch it. Oh, I get it now. That's what WWDITS stands for, What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah, oh my God. So good. Both so good. All right, Murray Reich writes, do you think theaters are on track to playing movies come end of June? Because every state is going through different phases of reopening, and hardest hit states like New York are most probably going to be the last to fully reopen. Are movies like Tenet taking a big risk? Absolutely, they're taking a risk. They're absolutely taking a risk. What they are banking on right now is the fact that whether it's smart or not smart, the states are starting to reopen in phases and whatever. And the likelihood is by July, again, smart or stupid, by July, they will probably all be at the phases where they're allowing the theaters to reopen under restrictions, for sure. So you listen, if I had to put $5 and not 50, if I had to put $5 in it, I'm wagering they be open by July. Yeah, I'm wagering they be open by July. I wouldn't bet $50 on it, but I'd wager they be open by July. But you're absolutely right, Murray. Listen, when you're in unprecedented times like this, everything you do is a risk, and this is certainly a risk on their part. Make no mistake about it. All right, Isaac Beebe writes, the official Disney Plus Twitter page can be followed by anyone in the world. Yet they are advertising the Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus bundle on it, even though many countries like Australia, where I'm from, don't have those services. Is this false advertising? No. Listen, just because, look, are you Isaac, all due respect, brother, come on. It's like, oh no, everybody in the world can see this. Oh, well, I better not talk about something that somebody somewhere in the world can't see it. No. Disney Plus is primarily an American-based thing. For them to not use the biggest social media tool they have to advertise their wares to, their audience that is in North America is ridiculous. It's like this. It would be like saying this, Isaac. If I'm doing a meet and greet at Comic-Con, which this has happened, should I put on my Twitter that I'm doing a meet and greet at Comic-Con? I mean, there are people in Poland who cannot come to San Diego to the meet and greet. Is that false advertising? No. I don't see any. I don't know. Rob, do you see any problem with Disney utilizing their Twitter account to market their stuff, even though not everybody in the world can get it?
No, because it's marketing. And the fact that we have a letter from Australia from somebody who's saying, is this false advertising? It means that what they're doing is working. It means that their marketing of something, even though you can't get the product, is working. And that's what it is. And I think that eventually people will be able to get all of these things. And it's not false advertising at all. It's marketing. Period.
And I would think of this too. YouTube, you can get it anywhere in the world. Is it false advertising for a studio to then put up a trailer on YouTube? It says coming March 5th, but it's not coming March 5th in Ireland. Is that false advertising? No, right. It's not false advertising. Just so no, I don't agree. I don't agree with you on that, brother. Isaac, I agree with you on a lot of stuff often, but I don't agree with you on that one, brother. All right. Isaac also writes, since Disney decided to add Splash to Disney Plus with CGI to make it more family friendly for their service, do you think they could do the same for Titanic by using clever editing to hide Kate Winslet's exposed breasts in the drawing scene? They could. And if they did,
why would you want to, John? Why would you want to?
Oh, I wouldn't. But if they did, I would also have no problem with it because I can watch Titanic elsewhere and not have that. But again, if CBS was going to air Titanic, which networks have aired Titanic, guess what? They cut the scene out. So if Disney will leave the scene in, but just do something creative CGI wise to cover the material that keeps it family friendly, then I got no problem with that, because if I want to see her boobs, I can go watch it on Google Play or Amazon, or it doesn't matter. I can watch it anywhere else that I want. Disney Plus is just another network in that case. So I don't know, Rob, what are you thinking on that?
Well, I just think that I don't want to live in a world where we're so infantilized that we can't, we're still going to, giggle over boobies? I mean, that's a lovely scene. And I understand why in our puritanical America, there's some people that just can't handle it, John. Oh my gosh. I mean, what's going to happen if the youth of America is exposed to the naked bosom of somebody? I mean, it's a real lovely scene. And I think let's just all grow up.
Oh, okay, time out though.
Grow up?
Time out. You and I cannot take the position that we say what other parents should and should not do with their kids. I mean, we can't put ourselves in that position. You're doing that with your kid. You shouldn't be like that. I don't agree with that. We do with television. The whole thing about Disney Plus is, Aaron put it best. And Aaron loves everything filthy, but Aaron put it best. She goes, one of the key marketing things about this product, about Disney Plus, is if you're a parent, you don't have to worry about anything. You can leave the room, and if you've got Disney Plus on, you're fine. You don't have to worry about anything about what your kid's seeing. They won't understand everything, but it's not everything. And Rob, again, this is something that's been going on for 40 years. When they put anything on TV that the entire family might be watching, they edit and beep and do whatever. This is no different. This isn't like some brand new thing where Disney came out of the woodwork and saying, we're going to start this trend where we're editing movies and all offensive content out. No, this is something all television broadcasting has been doing all the time. Disney is a particularly family-friendly brand, and they're not changing it anywhere else. You can watch Titanic. You can still watch it like that anywhere you want. The only place that's going to have that edit is on Disney Plus, because they want to make sure their families know they can leave their kids on with Disney Plus and there's no worries about it. I just don't see the issue here. I do not know what anybody is crying. Now, listen, I would agree with more people if it was Disney saying, oh, we own Titanic now. You know what we're going to do? We're making this edit for everywhere you could see this movie. No longer can you see anywhere the scenes where the boobs come out. I still have the freedom to watch it just as it is in its original cut. But if I want to watch it on Disney Plus, it's going to have a CGI box. I don't know, like a CGI Hot Toys box sitting in front of her boobs. I just don't see the problem. What's the problem? I don't get it. Rob, help me understand this mindset, because I don't understand where we're coming from.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But look, when I was 9 years old, my mom took me to see Logan's Run in the theater. There were boobs in that movie, John. And I, as a 9-year-old, I appreciated those boobs. And it didn't, make me crazy. If anything, it made me curious about the adult world I was going to jump into at some point in my life. But no, look, from that perspective, I understand. And I don't disagree with what you or what Aaron had said, as long as you can see the film other places. I guess the fact is, it's sad to me that Disney Plus would air something at all that they feel they need to censor in any way, shape, or form. I think, in a way, covering Daryl Hannah's bare buttocks, with we have to cover buttocks because, in a way, it says something in the long run that I think is more damaging than seeing a butt or a bare breast. I mean, it's part of life. It's part of being a human being, and I don't think that those scenes left in the film do more. They're more beneficial than detrimental. I think. Again,
I just think that's making parental decisions for other people and their kids. I just listen. Here's how I would feel different because again, I go back to the television thing. How is this any different? Are we saying that no television network should have ever aired any movie on television airways that weren't just rated G? Of course not. And they've been doing it for decades and decades and decades. And no one's ever had a problem with. We all understand. Oh, this is being on the public airwaves. A lot of families won't want their kids to see something. Oh, we all understand. And we have all always understood that. We've never had a problem with it. All of a sudden, we have a problem with it. And again, I think if what a parent wants their kid to see or not see, if that interfered with my right to see that stuff, well, then I'm sorry, parents, you're just going to have to keep a closer eye on your kids.
Right.
But if it's not taking away my ability to see that content in its original form on a dozen other platforms, again, somebody has yet to give to me a distinction between movies like when Snakes on a Plane was aired on network TV, mother flippin', mother, fencing, mother whatever, everything. No one has yet to give to me a true legitimate distinction between why that's not a problem, but Disney keeping the scene in. They didn't listen. Disney could have edited the scene out of the movie, but instead of doing that, they left the scene in the movie. They added some CGI hair just to cover the one thing that might offend some parents with their kids. But I can still watch. Ann and I did go back and watch Splash in its original form. I mean, it's still there. So nobody has yet given me a true reason why we should have no problem with television airing it one way, but we should get our pitchforks and torches and storm the castle, figuratively speaking, storm the castle, because in one scene that they didn't cut out, they added some CGI hair to cover her butt. This was perfectly fine. This is something for us to get angry about. It's still an issue that I still don't understand why people react the way they do about it. I just don't know. I just don't get it. Now, there is the argument that some people are saying, well, then if there's a movie with anything offensive, put it on Hulu. That is certainly one approach to it. But again, if all they had to do to keep Splash on Disney Plus, if the only thing they had to do to keep it on Disney Plus was add some CGI hair, I don't know.
I guess my objection to all of that is what kind of to me that I would rather have movies. Look, I understand it's a family. It is a family channel, and they don't want to offend anyone. But I would also say, what is offensive about these things? Why is it that we feel the need that children have to be protected from these things in the first place? That's what I find bizarre. And I don't necessarily think that we're doing anyone any favors by a mermaid. The idea of what a mermaid is in the first place, what is a mermaid? And if a mermaid comes to the shore, are you saying then that we know that Daryl Hannah grew legs and she no longer has a tail? I mean, the whole idea, the questions that are conjured up by that kind of thing, you're on one particular moment. Now is the time, just because you see her bare ass, that we're not gonna deal with what a kid's not gonna be like. If I was a kid watching a movie about mermaids, and I'm like, how are they gonna go pee-pee if they have a tail? I would have thought that in my own mind anyway.
Sure,
and it's not
but again, we're in danger of putting ourselves in the position where we are the ones telling other parents how you should parent your kids. And I think that's always dangerous territory to get in when we're saying what other parents should and should not do with their children. Because at the end of the day, Disney is a product, and they're selling their product to parents. And they're telling parents, you're safe with this. Wherever you are on the scale, you are safe with your kids with this. And again, though, I got to ask, Rob, why is this an issue now and no one's ever made an issue out of it for the 5,000 movies that have come out over 5 major networks over 40 years on television? Why is everybody making an issue out of this now when it's never been an issue before?
Well, I think because network television, first of all, was free to everybody. Now we have streaming services that we're paying for. And I think that there's been an expectation from cable companies and things like that you're getting a unaltered version of the film. And when you're paying for something, you want to see the film that is intact. And, my expectation would be that if you don't want your child to watch Titanic, then you tell them not to watch Titanic. Why should then the film and everyone be penalized? As a parent, I'm not a parent, but if I was, I would want my kids to see movies that were not cut. Simply
then you still can. There's other platforms where you can. See, I would agree with you completely. I think you and I would 100% be on the same page on this. If this was an issue of, this is how it is everywhere now. You cannot watch this movie without.
You're right.
It's just on this channel that as a product that they advertise for families, so families can watch it a certain way, and it's still available everywhere else for us to watch. I just don't understand the problem. I just don't get the problem.
Well, but they did other things, like they released Dumbo, and they were going to cut out the Black Crows scene, but they didn't, and they put a disclaimer on the front of the movie saying that there's certain however they worded
attitudes from an era and stuff like that. I get that, but now we're starting to nitpick. It's like, well, how come they said "damn" in this one movie? I had somebody literally tweet that for me before. Listen, we can get into the nitty gritty of like, okay, then where do they draw the line? It's in there, but the line has got to be drawn somewhere regardless, because I don't think anybody's going to think, you know what? Yeah, put Eyes Wide Shut on Disney Plus. It's okay. So if we all agree, yeah, that's probably not.
If I was a 9-year-old and I stumbled across that, I'd be like,
I'd be all over it. But I mean, seriously, I think most rational people will go, well, yeah, you don't put Eyes Wide Shut on it. It's like, okay, so we're agreeing there's a line. So now we're just getting into the nitpicking of where do you put that line. But I think we all agree that there should be. Anyway, we've gone on. I've gone on this far too long. We got to get back into the live questions here because we spent way too long on this. Kyle Cannon writes, hey guys, been a fan of yours for years, so I have a question. Does Toby Kebbell have the worst agent ever? I like him heaps, love a Monster Calls, but to list a few of his stinkers: Ben-Hur, Fantastic Four, Warcraft, Bloodshot, The Counselor, and more. Thanks. I don't know that he has the worst agent ever, because on one hand, Kyle, you just acknowledge his agent keeps getting him into high-profile movies.
How dare you malign The Counselor? The Counselor's genius.
That's one we still disagree on. But the fact of the matter is, there are a lot of hardworking, dedicated, dream-obsessed actors who would kill to be in the movies that Toby Kebbell has been in.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Look, the fact of the matter is, Toby Kebbell is not a major A-list star. I think we all agree that. We can agree how good he is. That's a separate issue, though. The fact that a guy who is not a major star, and maybe deserves to be, but has consistently gets work in consistently fairly high-profile projects. And by the way, listen, we talk about this a lot too, Rob, is that, when oftentimes I have read, Rob, and I know this is true of you too, I have read scripts. The remake of Clash of the Titans, for example. I read the script of that before it came out, and I thought, holy hell, this movie's going to be awesome. On script, on paper, it really looked like it was going to be awesome. Of course, it wasn't. Some of you may like it, and that's great if you do. But a lot of times, like when all you've got as an agent is you look at the script. Listen, Warcraft is coming out. Warcraft, super popular IP.
Yeah.
You've got the director of Moon, who is going to be directing this film. You've got a solid commitment from the studio to be big on it. Super major popular IP, world-class director, at least one of the hot names of directing at the time, is going to be directing it. Big support on a big studio. Of course you sign your client up for that movie if they'll take him. Of course you sign him up for that. So you got to keep that in mind too. Rob, can you think of any examples, as somebody who's read probably thousands of scripts, can you think of any examples where you read a script and thought, oh, this is going to be great, and it doesn't turn out to be so great?
Not really, but scripts have. I'll give you a different example. So Seven was the best script I ever read when I was reading scripts. It became the David Fincher movie. But even Seven, the movie, as much as I love it, it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be when I read the script. And Seven is an amazing movie. There were other scripts I read, like Copycat. You ever see Copycat with Sigourney Weaver and and Copycat, while it got made, I was like, this movie's okay. But when I saw it, because what's his face? The singer, Harry Connick Jr. I was like, Harry Connick Jr.'s performance in Copycat made the movie much better than it read on the page. So you have it both ways. I mean, I think that it's different, but I think for the most part, there's so few scripts that are actually good that I never read a script that I thought was really good on the page that didn't turn out to at least be okay. Oh, that's not true. There is one. T-Rex, Theodore Rex The dinosaur movie.
Was that with Whoopi Goldberg?
Yes. Dude, I kid you not. That script was like Blade Runner meets Jurassic Park. Jonathan Betul wrote that script, who wrote The Last Starfighter. And I thought that script was so kick-ass. And the movie was so... He directed that movie, too. That film was so god-awful compared to what was on the page. I couldn't believe it. That was it. That's the one script that I read that I'm like, this could be great. And it was just horrifically bad. That's the movie. That's the one.
All right, let's keep moving here. Luis Martinez writes, one of two. Hey, John, how's it possible that John Krasinski is getting so many Hollywood and even political/religious figures on his Some Good News channel as guests? It's effing amazing. The whole of the Office cast, Spielberg, Oprah, Malala, even astronauts in space. I thought of him as just a great actor/director, relatively new to Hollywood, but by doing something like this, he's showing that maybe he's something different. By the way, love the show. Hope you have an excellent day. Go Seahawks. Well, I think there's a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, he is a legitimate name in the business. I mean, he was on one of the most popular television series. He was the star of one of the most popular television series of all time in The Office. He's been on a number of big things, and then he came out of the woodwork, and everybody's acknowledging him as one of the hot directors and in the business right now and all this kind of stuff. And just a wonderful dude. And he's probably one half of the biggest power couple in Hollywood right now with him and Emily Blunt. Now, you compound that with the fact that he comes out of nowhere, does this Some Good News YouTube thing that's done so charmingly and gets tens of millions of people watching it. So it's super popular. But here's the main thing. What did Steven Spielberg have to do, or what did the Office cast have to do, which are all his friends, obviously, but what do any of these people have to do to get on a show? Do they have to fly to LA, get a stylist, all this kind of stuff, book a time, fit into the schedule? No. It's like, okay, yeah, I can do that interview with you at 2 a.m. in the morning over Skype. I mean, it's seriously, it's not that hard. It's the whole reason why, like, people like all these late night talk shows, they're still able to get all these people because it's even easier now. They didn't have to bring somebody into town. They don't have to work around their schedules. It's just, when are you available to hop on a Skype call for a few minutes? Oh yeah, I can do that, Mr. Krasinski. Boom, and do it. So it's a conglomeration of all those things. And by the way, he's doing such his Some Good News show on YouTube. It's unfortunate.
So good.
It's unfortunate it's going to be so short-lived because, once he actually has to get back to work, it's going to be different. But the fact that he's just doing it is so charming and delightful. But yeah, the big factor is that all he's got to do is get them to jump on Skype and he's good to go. And people are adoring this show and seeing his show as important right now. Like, Some Good News right now is kind of an important show. And it's great what he's doing. It's absolutely great. All right,
I completely
let's see.
agree.
James L.H. writes, John, 1 of 4. Oh boy, here we go. Buckle up. I really enjoyed your walkthrough of your studio, and whenever you explain what goes on behind the curtain, I'm always fascinated when Rob talks about behind-the-scenes features he's produced. One of the reasons I love discs is features. Star Wars Episode 1, which is one of the best special features DVDs of all time, is one of the best, and Lord of the Rings Extended for me took it to a new level. The recent Knives Out doc is one of the best for a while. A friend of mine and Rob's produced that, as a matter of fact. I mentioned this because of Mandalorian behind the scenes. I've been disappointed so far. Roundtable talks like MCU directors or the Hollywood Reporter ones are good, but for me, this shouldn't be the main focus on The Mandalorian. When Filoni was talking to me, it was wasted 7 minutes that had nothing to do with the production of the series. When he talked, I kept checking out how long was left. Yeah, me too. How long was left. I think the roundtable parts could have been served better as separate feature on Disney Plus, released each week alongside behind the scenes documentary. So far, I haven't learned much about the series itself, and my concern is that this is the format going forward. And yeah, it's my concern as well. Now, listen, I love the first episode because it was just introducing us to the players involved, the directors, right? And so I really appreciate it. But I also thought for sure next week, they're going to get into the whole thing, Rob, that you were looking for. I thought for sure next week, they'll talk about, Jon Favreau's first phone call, trying to set up a meeting with Kathleen Kennedy, and then their first conversations, and then about how Kennedy said, I want you to work with Dave Filoni on this. And then, you know, how they evolved the story. How did they come to the conclusion of getting, you know, Pascal in to be Mandalorian, even though he's probably actually in the suit less than half the time. But how did they, like, all the actual behind the scenes nitty gritty. And all the last episode was, isn't Star Wars great? Yeah, we fucking know that already. We know Star Wars is great. Talk to us about Mandalorian. Talk to us about the behind the scenes of Mandalorian. Talk to us about the philosophy of why this episode followed this episode of Mandalorian. Talk to us about the damn Mandalorian. It's like tuning in to watch an episode of the ESPN documentary series The Last Dance with Michael Jordan and having an entire episode talked about, isn't basketball great? And just a bunch of people, then just having a bunch of people sitting around a table going, you know what I love about basketball? It's fast. Oh yeah, basketball's fast. And wasn't Wilt Chamberlain great? Oh my gosh, Wilt Chamberlain. This is supposed to be a documentary about the Michael Jordan Bulls going into their final season before it all got shut down. That's what this is supposed to be about. Focus on that. And that was the big frustration to me. Listen, I'm not saying there weren't interesting things in that episode. You know, the Dave Filoni story was interesting. The Kathleen Kennedy telling the story about how George, the evolution of George deciding, you know, being on the set of Indiana Jones, kind of helping him evolve his decision to make more. I mean, that's all interesting stuff, but it is completely irrelevant. It has nothing to do with what is supposed to be a behind the scenes of Mandalorian. That's what this is about. You know what else I love? I love blowjobs. But guess what? If I'm sitting down and watching an episode of Star Wars, I don't want you to cut away for a 5-minute interlude of some blowjob on screen. I'm watching Star Wars to watch Star Wars. You know, I'm watching a behind-the-scenes documentary of Mandalorian to see behind-the-scenes stuff of Mandalorian. I don't know. Maybe that was a bad example. I don't know. But I don't know. Rob, what do you think? What do you think? What's your take on this?
I'm a big fan. No, look, as someone who's actually made documentaries for Disney, not to toot my own horn, but I did. I've worked on Fantasia, Snow White, The Emperor's New Groove, and of course I made a feature and Chronicles of Narnia. But I made a feature-length documentary on the making of Tron. And while we did talk about how earlier things led up to Tron, it was always in terms of the making of Tron. And I'm like, I want to know how the Mandalorian series came about. How did it start? Whose idea was it? How did they decide? Was it based off the Boba Fett script that they didn't make? Like, they've told us nothing. They've told us nothing about where the series came from, early development, who was hired, where did the effects come from? How did they decide to use stagecraft? All of those things. What was Dave Filoni's first meeting with Jon Favreau like? What did they discuss? You know, I mean, did they watch Clone Wars together? They just announced today that Katie Sackhoff is playing one of the characters from Clone Wars in The Mandalorian for the second season. And it's like, well, how did all of these things come about? And is this something that they talked about from the very beginning? We don't know anything about The Mandalorian show, really. We haven't learned anything about the production of that show yet. And I'm like, what a wasted opportunity. We've now watched an hour of this documentary series, and we've learned nothing about the actual production of The Mandalorian, and it's weird.
And you know what? And some people will say, rightfully so, because it's what I said to you after episode 1. It's like, well, John, I'm sure they'll get to it. Okay. But again, I go back to this incredible docuseries, this is how you do a docuseries. The ESPN docuseries on The Last Dance right now, right? They didn't make you wait for 3 episodes to actually start talking about the final season of Michael Jordan and the Bulls. The first episode, the first minute was, this is what this docuseries is.
Yeah,
and they dive right into it right away. Not making you, like the person who just, James LH, who wrote in is like, okay, they're hearing some guy tell a story that has nothing to do with Mandalorian or the production of Mandalorian or anything. And you find yourself looking at your watch. It's like, damn it, how much time is left in this episode? Are they, like, the fact that you have to just sit around on your ass for like 2 episodes before you start talking about the behind the scenes of Mandalorian. Again, I like the first episode. Introducing the players I thought was a nice start. But I really hope they turn it around, dude. I really hope they turn it around. All right, we just got time for a couple more with Rob here, so let's dive into it. 50 Shades of Geek writes, can I please get a t-shirt that has Mufasa's Force Ghost on it? We're talking about Force Ghost, the Mufasa Force Ghost. I'd be that. I'd be down to see a Mufasa in Jedi robes doing it as a Force Ghost. Russell Amador writes, hey, John, I saw the topic for today and thought we were all set for July, but I haven't stumbled across a statement from Warner's that they were keeping the July release date for Tenet. Do you know something that we don't know? Well, we talked this. That's because it's something that came up a few weeks ago, right? We got into the stories from Forbes and IndieWire that were Warner Brothers is backing up Christopher Nolan on this. But again, it ain't official. I mean, because Warner Brothers' stance right now is we are holding that July 17th release date. That we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But until they pull the trigger and actually start spending the big marketing money, it's something they could reverse course on. But as of right now, we now, with Bob Chapek's new comments, we now have officially, at least for the moment, Wonder Woman, Tenet, and now Mulan are their studios are saying for now we're holding course. We're holding course for these dates. Now that can change. But as of right now, that's where they're all at. All right. Box of Chocolates writes, this is my first tip to your show. Oh, thank you so much, Box of Chocolates. A little bit of a Forrest Gump reference there. Just wanted to say that I love the way you do things on here and have a lot of respect for the way you carry yourself as both a content creator and man. Wishing nothing but the best for you and everyone on the show. Oh, thank you so much for that, Box. It's always really nice when somebody just wants to send in something to say something nice. And I appreciate it. You have no idea that, like, really, it's not just lip service me saying, I really appreciate that. Dude, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, man. That's really kind of you. All right. Box of Chocolates also writes, as a guy from Cleveland, LeBron Town, I really enjoyed The Last Dance. Speaking of that docuseries, even though I was born in 93, I've always been a Jordan fan due to stories and clips about but the doc makes me appreciate his accomplishments even more. How do you feel about the doc so far? I'm behind. I only started watching it recently. I'm 4 episodes in and I am engrossed.
Yeah, me too.
It's, oh, dude, man, as a documentarian yourself, dude, I mean, like, what is making this show work? So, like, you don't even have to be a basketball fan to be intrigued by this. What's making it work?
I think you're absolutely right what you just said. I think a great documentary should make anybody, no matter what, if you just are an inquisitive person, you should be able to watch a documentary about any subject, because a good story is a good story. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, I'm not the biggest sports fan in the world, but this documentary is so engrossing from the get-go because of the way it conveys information. You know, if you're just a person interested in the world around you, you sit down and you're like, wow. And you're completely captivated by because it's the story of a man who, he could have been, he's a hero. You know, he's going. There's the hero's journey. There's the whole milieu. It's like Gladiator, or it's like any kind of a great story. You could transpose the structure of what they're doing into any kind of a narrative, and it would be compelling. And it's beautifully done. You can't not watch it and be like transfixed.
By the way, I don't know if they've covered this in the documentary or not, but one of my favorite Jordan stories. You can go and find this on YouTube. This, to me, out of all the championships and MVPs, this is my favorite Michael Jordan story. It was after he retired, like really retired. It was like a year after he retired. And Michael Jordan is talking to a former teammate of his, like a buddy of his on the Bulls. And his buddy goes, hey, there's this rookie that they had just drafted, like drafted top 5 or something. This rookie we just drafted. He's going around practicing. He could beat you in a one-on-one game. He could beat Jordan in a one-on-one game. Apparently that pissed Jordan off. So apparently near the end of one practice, Michael Jordan shows up at the Bulls practice. You can find this on YouTube. He shows up at the Bulls practice facility, grabs a ball, points at the kid and just goes, let's go. And then he just schooled him. And it's like, think before you talk next time. And then like walks out. You got to go see the YouTube video. It's absolutely amazing. Okay. Next up here, Simon writes, John, I know that you are not a fan of DC animated movies or Marvel animated movies, but there are some exceptions. There are some exceptions, actually. But you have got to see Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. Man, that movie rivals Flashpoint, dude. That's not saying much. That's not saying a lot. I don't know. I've seen so many times there's been like a DC or a Marvel animated thing that's a straight to video crap. And people say, oh, you gotta watch this. And then I watch, it's like, that was shit. I mean, the last thing DC put out that I really, really liked in their straight to home video stuff was their Dark Knight Returns adaptation. That was pretty damn special. Did you ever see the one they did on, the one where the Joker shoots Barbara Gordon, Killing Joke?
Oh, the Killing Joke.
Killing Joke. Did you see Killing Joke?
Yes.
Oh my God, that was so bad.
It wasn't good, and you know they changed things. But I'd say there have been like I really liked Flashpoint, the movie. I really liked it a lot, and I liked the Wonder Woman, the early Wonder Woman one they did. There's been some that I've quite enjoyed, and
there are a couple I really enjoyed too.
Yeah, I want to see this new one because I like the comic series.
So I was going to ask you that. You hadn't seen it yet?
No, I haven't. It just came out, and I do want to see it.
All right, I don't know that I just don't want to watch it. I just don't want to watch it. Again, I'm not talking crap on it because I haven't seen it. I'm not saying it's bad. I haven't seen it. I just don't really want to watch it. All right, Ben Rayner writes, hey, John and Rob, one of the things that bothers me now that we know Rey's past is that lightsaber. If she was a Palpatine the whole time, does it make sense that she heard Jedi Obi-Wan's voice call to her in The Force Awakens? Also, great moves yesterday, Rob. I don't know what the great moves yesterday means. Oh, wait, now I know the physical moves. Scott
Vance.
There's trades, right?
Yeah.
I just don't. First of all, just because her dad was Palpatine, that doesn't mean that she's still not her own individual. Like, you know, Force Ghost, Obi-Wan and everything, they may sense in her that she's truly that. But again, I'm the wrong guy to ask to try to justify the logic of the Rise of Skywalker. I just, you know what? I decided, I've been thinking about it for a couple of months, Rob. And while 100 other channels have done it, I think just for myself, I think I'm going to do a video, a pre-recorded, edited video. I'm going to do a video on, what are we now in like the 6-month post-mortem of Rise of Skywalker, where and while other people have made, there's lots of videos, believe me, there's lots of videos online about, why the Rise of Skywalker sucks. I really feel for myself, I feel like I need to do a video on, here's the post-mortem on Rise of Skywalker and really why it failed, even for somebody like me who has at least enjoyed, some I love, some I enjoyed, but to somebody like me who has enjoyed all the Disney era Star Wars movies, I've enjoyed all of them up to this point. So why did The Rise of Skywalker, for somebody like me who's enjoyed all the rest of them, see this one as a failure? And I think I'm going to do that video. I've been wrestling with it because I don't like getting on a lot of hate stuff, but I think just for my own therapy, I think for my own therapy and closure, I think I have to do my own video on that. And you, Rob, you and I have talked about this a lot. There's a lot to cover on it, but yeah, sorry, Ben, I'm the wrong guy to ask to make any sense out of the stuff. Okay, last two questions here from the tip link that you guys have sent in. Everything Entertainment writes, quarantine recommendation, Thoroughbreds 2018. Oh, that's the one with Anton Yelchin, one of Anton Yelchin's final films, as a matter of fact. Two teen girls conspire to murder an emotionally abusive stepfather. Dark comedy was the movie that made me look at Anya Taylor-Joy and think she's possibly the next Cate Blanchett or Amy Adams. I don't know if her ceiling is that high, but I really do like her, as a matter of fact. But yeah, one of the big things, Rob, of course, for that movie, it was I think the last theatrically released film that Anton Yelchin, I think he passed away like a good year and a half before the movie finally came out. But anyway, your thoughts on Thoroughbreds?
I actually saw it and I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. And like you said,
it's a nice movie.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, and I love her. That's why I'm so sad we haven't seen New Mutants yet, because she plays Aviana Rasputin. Magic. I want to see it so bad, John.
Soon. Soon. All right. And last tip question before we go over to the super chat questions. It comes to us from an anonymous viewer who writes in, could the need for social distancing bring back the popularity for drive-in theaters? Dude, I mean, we've talked about this a bunch. I have no idea why drive-in theaters had to be closed down. I have no idea why. What is more social distancing than you being in your own car? I just don't get it. And so I don't know, like when everything opens back up, the first thing people will go to, I think, is the drive-in theaters. I know I'm itching to go to a drive-in right now. And as a matter of fact, one viewer sent me an email saying that the drive-in in San Diego is opening back up this week. So Ann and I have talked about maybe even just jumping in the car and driving to San Diego just to go to a drive-in. It almost doesn't even matter what movies are going to be playing. Doesn't matter. Just go hang out in the drive-in, and have some fun. So there's that. But I don't know if it's going to add much to the longevity. I don't know if there's going to be a long-term positive effect for drive-in theaters. It'd be great if they did. Rob, what do you think about that whole thing?
Well, look, drive-in theaters are fun, but the movie-going experience to me is never going to a drive-in. The experience of going to the drive-in, I feel like I need to go sing to Sandy on the swings like in Grease when I go to a drive-in. I never go to a drive-in thinking I can't wait to be at this drive-in to see this movie. It's almost like I can't wait to be inside this drive-in so I can go to the refreshment stand and walk around the drive-in. The movie-going experience I don't think is enhanced by drive-ins, at least for me now. I want to go see a theater with laser projection. I want to go to a Dolby Cinema and see a movie properly. I don't feel that drive-ins ever give you the proper movie-going experience, but that's just me.
I find it a fun experience. I mean, it's very different. It's a very different experience. You're right. Like if it's opening night of the Batman, I want to see it in the Prime Theater. That's where I want to go see it. But but the drive-in experience is it's a different thing, right? It's like it's a separate thing. It's a different thing, and it's one that's enjoyable. It's like just driving there, being in your own car, bringing a cooler in your back seat. I don't know. There's just some kind of fun about it. And granted, I haven't done it in a while, but I'm looking forward to trying it again. Hey, listen, for now, it's time for us to let Robert Meyer Burnett go and do the things he's got to do today. We'll, of course, see you back again tomorrow, Rob. But in the meantime, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show Robservations.
And of course, dude, we will see you again tomorrow. Have a fabulous rest of the day. Oh, and I'll actually call you later tonight because we can talk about that stuff. All right, dude, I will talk to you later. Have a great day, man.
All right, man. You too.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, with that down, let's now move on with the rest of your questions. We're now going to move over to the super chat questions that you guys have been using on YouTube to send in questions. We're going to start things off here with Suthius, who writes, hey, Mr. C, do you also watch One Championship Fights? I do not watch it on any kind of regular. I will dig up and watch the ones that get posted on YouTube from now and again, but I don't watch it on the regular, and I really would like to. I really wouldn't mind to, because I've seen some really great fights. Matthew Melagrano writes, how can Rob say Plane 9 from outer space? How can he say what about it? I'm sorry, Matthew. I'm not really sure what it is you're asking. Lord Vanderkill writes, Scarlet Witch or Batman, who has the better you will? Oh, I feel like we answered that one before. Scarlet Witch. I mean, Batman's the better character, but like, you will. It's one of the most shaking, stunning, chills through my body lines I've seen in a comic book action film in a long, long time. I'll give that one to Scarlet Witch. Jaron Morris writes, my God, Justin Gaethje dominated. Dude, everybody said I was crazy. When I predicted on this show, I said, Justin Gaethje is going to win this fight, guys. He is a maestro of violence. Tony Ferguson's awesome, and he very well could win the fight, but I'm telling you, my pick is Justin Gaethje. He's going to win this fight. And everybody said I was crazy. He destroyed Tony Ferguson. I didn't expect him to beat him that badly, but yeah, it was a pretty bad beating. Sam Neeson writes, hey, John and Rob, as a fellow Blu-ray lover, I'm quite upset that there won't be any new ones until the end of the year. Yeah, and listen, it is especially important now. With the end of physical media coming, it's especially important now that people who are collectors and love buying Blu-rays, that they be able to do it now, because there's not a lot of time left. A couple of years. left that you can actually buy that stuff. So it really sucks for people who enjoy collecting that stuff when we get periods of time where there's not a lot of new property coming out. So that does kind of suck, because now is the time. Now is the time to buy this stuff. Now is the time. Iconic Reaction writes, movies that deserve a sequel. Chronicle, I always did want to see a sequel to that. Hancock, I still don't know why they didn't do that one. Big Hero 6, yeah, they did an animated show instead, but they should have done a sequel. Rise of the Guardians, I'm not so sure about that one. Unpopular, but Training Day, I don't think they should have done one for Training Day. Salt, could have done one for Salt. Wanted totally should have had a sequel. Inception, no, Inception shouldn't have done a sequel. And Red Sparrow, I suppose I was very excited about Red Sparrow, the Jennifer Lawrence film, but it just wasn't that good of a movie. I was hoping for a lot better, but I found it so, maybe there's a story you could do there as a sequel, but just because I didn't like the first one so much, probably not. But a bunch of the ones on your list, yeah, I don't know why some of those don't have sequels already. Alan Gonzalez writes, news of a live action Dragon Ball Z show or movie have been popping up on my Facebook. I always comment fake thoughts. I listen, maybe, but until you see it in a real source, I wouldn't pay any attention to it. Just don't pay any attention to it until you see it in a real source. And by real source, I mean the studio put out a statement, or Variety reports something, or The Hollywood Reporter, or Deadline, or Entertainment Weekly. Unless one of those outlets write about it, I just don't pay much attention to it. Because 98 times out of 100, it's not true. And for those 2 times out of the 100, it is true. Well, if it's true, eventually one of the reputable sites will write about it, and then you know that it's real. But, I mean, listen, Dragon Ball Z is a very popular IP. Dragon Ball Z is a very, very popular IP worldwide. That doesn't mean it would be successful. We already know that we've seen examples where it's not successful. But I wouldn't doubt for a second that somebody's looking at doing it. So maybe it's true, but I wouldn't put too much stock into it or really waste too much time thinking about it until one of the real legitimate trades report on it. All right. Nemanja Jovanovic writes, read my name as Nemanja. There we go. Have you seen any of Partizan Yugoslav movies? I have not. I'm assuming those are Yugoslavian movies. I have not seen any of those. I'm actually not familiar with the terminology, but now you've put it on my radar, so if somebody brings it up again, I will go, you know what, I've heard about this. Let me look into that. But no, I have not, Nemanja, as a matter of fact. And by the way, thank you for being so considerate to give me the actual pronunciation, because everybody knows I really struggle with names. All right, Cloud Wings writes, Todd McFarlane trying to direct his movie kind of reminds me of Frank Miller and The Spirit. After shadowing Robert Rodriguez in Sin City, total disaster. Yeah, I mean, listen, who doesn't love Frank Miller? Who doesn't love Frank Miller? But let's be honest, and I said this a long back in my movie blog days. I said, just because Frank Miller was the co-director of Sin City. Let's be clear here. Robert Rodriguez directed Sin City. All right. And he had Frank Miller there. Yeah. But let's be honest. Robert Rodriguez directed that movie. It doesn't matter what Robert or Frank or whatever says. Frank Miller didn't know anything about directing. But because he's Frank Miller, and who doesn't love Frank Miller? But because he's Frank Miller and he had that directing credit on Sin City, they handed him a major motion picture to direct, even though he really wasn't a director. And we got The Spirit, which is one of the worst films. Like ever. It's like one of the worst films almost ever. And you see what happens when you take that type of material and put it into somebody who doesn't really know the director. Todd McFarlane insisting that he wants a guy who is not a director, knows nothing about directing. Todd McFarlane insisting that he's going to direct his own Spawn movie is the same situation. And that's why he's having a hard time, I think, getting investors to actually sign the checks, because you don't know what you're doing. But anyway, I think that's a good analogy, Cloud Wings. I really do. Wakanda Forever writes, this is our main event of the evening. 5 rounds. Winner rules the galaxy in their corners. Thanos, Darth Vader, General Zod, special guest referee Lex Luthor. It's time. Touch gloves. Let's get it on. And you know me, I'm always Darth Vader wins that fight. Darth Vader wins that fight. You know, he just uses the Force, which apparently the Force can do FedEx. The Force can do FedEx, according to The Rise of Skywalker. So Thanos can go to snap his fingers and Darth Vader just goes, Voo, and now the glove's in his hand. So, I mean, yeah. So Darth Vader wins. Darth Vader wins all time, every time. All right. Wakanda Forever also writes, forget Batman versus Superman. I want to see Darkwing Duck versus Mighty Mouse. P.S. Just do Fat Wolverine. It worked for Thor. Hugh Jackman, problem solved. But the problem with Hugh Jackman is not that he's out of shape. Hugh Jackman is in shape. He's just not looking like what he did in Wolverine. And you're Wolverine. Like, your healing factor and everything should keep your body looking the way it looks, right? So, I mean, that's the bigger problem. So you can't do skinny Wolverine. You could do fat Wolverine before you do skinny Wolverine, but Hugh Jackman is like over the whole, 3 hour a day lifting weights. I think he's just over that. Not to mention that like 3 pounds of chicken breast you have to eat per day. Remember, because he got his diet from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He called Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson gave him his diet. It's crazy, but he said, yeah, I just don't want to do that anymore. Wakanda Forever also writes, I've been cooped up for too long. No, I get it. We have all been there, Wakandan Forever. We have all been there, and we're all in it right now, so I totally feel you, brother. All right, Anthony Lucalano writes, stuck at home with the flu after getting my flu jab yesterday. How's that for irony? So after watching Animal House this morning, I thought I'd change things up and watch The Devil's Backbone next. The Devil's Backbone. That's the Guillermo del Toro film. Yeah. That's the older Guillermo del Toro film about the kid. Is that not the movie about the kid who just like at the haunted school? I think that's the one. Yeah, I think that's the one. Oh, it's a good one to watch. If it's the one I'm thinking of. I'm probably totally thinking of the wrong film, but if that's the one, then yeah, check that one out. All right, Anthony also writes, this is my first time watching The Devil's Backbone. It's an older film too, because I think it's like 2002, 2003 or somewhere around there. Or was it like 2000? I think it was like the early 2000s. Anyway, I could be wrong about it completely. All right. Buddy Christ, the Original Jedi writes, the more roles I see Daniel Radcliffe in, the more I can see him playing Wolverine. I never thought I'd say that about Harry effing Potter, but great actors act no matter what the role is. Who knew? I think here's my one problem with Daniel Radcliffe. He still looks... Daniel Radcliffe is not a kid anymore, by the way. Let me look up here. Radcliffe age. How old is he now? Yeah, he's not a child anymore. He's 30 years old. I don't know, though. He just doesn't, just in his face, I don't know. He just doesn't have that look. But listen, Daniel Radcliffe has proven he is a damn good actor. He's a damn good actor. I wouldn't put him on the Robert Pattinson level yet, but he has, like, whether it's Horns or whether like a lot of these smaller indie films he's done, he's followed the Robert Pattinson path. He's been doing a lot of smaller indie films, and he's proven he's quite good. Let's put it this way, Buddy Christ. If they were to announce he's playing Wolverine tomorrow, there'd be a lot of people upset, but I would go, okay, let's see where this goes. Let's see. I'd at least be a little bit intrigued. Wouldn't be in my top 20 choices, but I would at least be a little bit intrigued because he's proving to be a pretty good actor, actually. All right. M. Docher writes, here in Denmark, the cinemas will open up on the 8th of June if Tenet won't run in the US in July. Do you think it can open first in Europe and later in the USA? That's a good question, because one of the big discussions going on about when to release these movies is that studios like global releases. I mean, if they separate by a few weeks, that's okay. But generally speaking, they like to have a global release of their films within a certain window of time. Not on the same day, but within a certain confined window of time. A few weeks, difference, whatever. And if they can't open in the States, will they open in other countries? I don't know. One of the big things they'll be worried about is piracy. If the movie's open in other countries and not in the States, then the studios are going to be really, really worried about piracy. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe they could open it there first and they feel like, okay, we can't make our July 17th release date, but we know we can do August 1st. So just wait 2 weeks. If that's the case, maybe they keep that July 17th release date in some international markets if it's only like 2 weeks away before they open the States. But I think it would have to be a scenario like that. But we'll find out. We're getting closer. All right. Anthony Lucalano writes, just finished watching The Devil's Backbone because you were just watching it. They're so good. I think it might be my second. Okay, it is the Guillermo del Toro movie. Okay, there we go. I think it might be my second favorite Guillermo del Toro film now after Pan's Labyrinth. Ooh, that's some big words there, because I mean, his other film, The Shape of Water, like won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. So That's some high praise for that movie, Anthony. I'm glad you enjoyed it, brother. All right, Best D14 writes, Rob, who's not here, you did the special features. Where's my 4K Lord of the Rings disc release? Also, thank you guys for doing amazing work and giving us a sense of normalcy. Oh, thank you so much. And dude, thank you for being here and giving us a sense of normalcy. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, listen, that's been a topic of conversation a lot lately, is where's the 4K release for for Lord of the Rings. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a physical media guy. So when people start asking, I'm like, I didn't even realize there wasn't a 4K release of it. I didn't even know that. But I'm hearing people talking about it. It's like, yeah, so that's something a lot of people are asking. That's a good question. I don't know. I just assumed there was a 4K release. I didn't even know. But I'll tell you what, I will ask Rob that. See if he's got any insight. I mean, obviously he has nothing to do with the decision-making process about that, but I'll see if he happens to know anything. All right, Nerds of Porn writes, did you see Connor call out Gaethje on social media? Yeah, Connor, all he's doing is flapping his gums. Connor had the opportunity to fight Justin Gaethje, right? When Conor McGregor had his fight with Donald Cowboy Cerrone, he had Justin Gaethje available. Justin Gaethje was willing and ready to fight Conor McGregor, but Conor McGregor chose the easier fight. He chose, and listen, Donald Cowboy Cerrone could have beat him. It's possible he could have beat him. He's really good, but Justin Gaethje is better. And I think Conor McGregor knew that, and so Conor McGregor ducked Gaethje. So yeah, he can talk now to try to stay relevant. He can talk, but that's all he's doing is talking. All right, Taylor Haywood writes, think TED 3 will happen in the next 10 years. Greetings from Victoria. Go Oilers. You know what? No, I don't. I don't think they're ever going to do another TED. And I like the TED movies, particularly the first one, but the second one had some majorly hilarious moments. I am a fan of the TED movies. I honestly don't think they're ever going to do a TED 3. I really don't. Not to mention, Seth MacFarlane is getting busier and busier, and I really don't see him making TED 3 a priority moving forward. So no, I don't think we're going to see a TED 3 in the next few years, unfortunately, because I would see it. I would totally watch the hell out of that. All right, Donald Mex writes, and we just have time for a couple more here, guys. What's up? By the way, been a fan since the AMC days. Thank you so much, man. Have you heard about Disney Plus making Sword series? The info is from Clans. Marvel Sounds Clans. Marvel sounds made up. If true, awesome. What are your thoughts on this? Yeah, I saw that. It's not reliable information. That came from 4chan, I think. It came from a discussion board on 4chan, which again, 1% of the time, something from 4chan turns out to be true, but 99 out of 100% of the time, it doesn't. So I would say it's not even worth talking about until a real legitimate place reports that. Once a real legitimate place reports that, cool. Then we can discuss it. But until then, nah. It's not even worth discussing. It's not even worth discussing. The Wakandan Forever writes, I was made for loving you, baby. Now a guitar solo. Da, da. We were talking about Kiss the other day. And it's like, isn't it crazy? Like Kiss, who's known as this metal band, and their biggest hit of all time was really a disco song. And it's kind of funny. Wakandan Forever also writes, stay safe and healthy, everyone, and productive. Love. Thank you so much for that, man. Everybody needs a little bit more of that today. Donald Makes also writes, hello again, John and crew. So I did some digging. Turns out there's a leaked photo of Wanda V. I don't know what Wanda V is, with sword emblem in the background. Could mean anything, but man, I'd be super gibbly if this show's happening. Again, I wouldn't pay any attention to it because, first of all, even if there was, let's say there was a sword show that was going to happen, if that was true, they certainly haven't started production on it. So I wouldn't, again, I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm just saying until we hear from legitimate information sources, it's just not worth getting excited about, because these things, there are literally about 10 of these types of things every day, and it could turn out to be true. But if it is true, then it's going to get reported on one of the legitimate sources, and then it's worth us wasting our brain power over. Yeah, for me, whatever, I don't like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think it's a terrible show. I think it's got some tremendously talented people in it, like Clark Gregg, who is awesome. I'll watch and support Clark Gregg do anything. He's great, and he's really good in that show. I just think the writers are really bad on that show, and I just think they've done a poor job with it. So I'm not really interested in anything that's kind of a spinoff from that. Lamont Smalls writes, hey, John and Rob, still hopeful movie theaters are open in New York City by August. Been looking forward to seeing Mulan for the longest time. Well, if that's the case, you need them open a little bit earlier than August. You need them open by July 24th. And I still think, again, we got to remember this is well over 2 months away. I do think there is a solid chance that the theaters will be open under certain restrictions for sure. But I do think they'll be open. I wouldn't bet $100 on it, but I think they will be. All right. Let's see. Jiu-Jitsu JT writes, what are examples of bad but well-written films? I'd have to sit down and think about that. I'd have to sit down to think about that. Again, one of the examples that I brought up a little bit earlier was I thought the script to Clash of the Titans, the remake one with Sam Worthington, I thought the script was really good. Like I read the script and I thought this works. And then it's like, yeah, this is the same movie, but on screen, it doesn't work. I mean, so it's a weird thing. So that's the first thing off the top of my head. All right. The Mac guy writes, Disney owns Fox. Why not drop more Why not drop more Fox family friendly content on Disney Plus and Hulu? I'm sure they will. I'm sure they've got a plan for that stuff. Listen, the whole reason that Disney bought Fox was not to get X-Men. They didn't care about that. I mean, they cared, but it was a tiny, tiny part of the reason. The reason Marvel or DC, try that again. The reason Disney bought Fox was for the library, that and the IP. That's why they bought Fox. So, they have plans for all that content. They have plans for the content. Now, a lot of this content might already be caught up in some other licensing issues, like, hey, Netflix has the license for that Fox property for at least 2 more years or blah. So they got to wait out a lot of stuff. But I believe they totally do have a long-term plan for that, Matt guy. Because that's the reason they bought Fox in the first place. All right. Sammy Alrari writes, thoughts on Interstellar. It's my favorite movie ever. The best experience I ever had in the movies. Nolan knows how to make the audience feel like they're in the movie. Like Inception, I couldn't wait to sleep. Honestly, Interstellar is my second least favorite Christopher Nolan film. It's my second least favorite Christopher Nolan film. Now, I like every Christopher Nolan film. Like, there's not a Christopher Nolan film that I dislike. I like them all. So out of all the Christopher Nolan films that I like, Interstellar to me is the second least that I like. I like Interstellar. I enjoy that film. But I thought it was higher in concept than it was in execution. And I felt like no other filmmaker other than Christopher Nolan could have made that film and swung for the fences like he did and done any better. I think what he accomplished in that film was incredible, but there are issues with the movie. To me, like, I'm not disparaging your experience of the film. Your experience of the film is your experience of the film, but mine was a little bit different. I had issues with the film in it. Overall, an amazing accomplishment. It's a good movie. I enjoy it. The only movie of Christopher Nolan's that I like, but like less, is The Dark Knight Rises, which again, I like. I like The Dark Knight Rises. But it's my least favorite of Christopher Nolan's films. My second least favorite is Interstellar. But still, it's a concept-wise, it's one of the highest concept films that's been out in a lot of years. All right, and last up, we'll just give some mentions. Jermaine Walker sends in a $150 super chat, dude. I don't know what to say. Thank you so much for the support, man. That's incredibly generous of you. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that, dude. And he just sent it in just to send it in and be supportive. Thank you so much for that, man. I could sit here and just gush on that all day, but thank you, man. I really, really appreciate that. And Michelle Alexandria also sends in a super chat just to be supportive. Thank you so much. All right, guys. There are still a couple left, but we'll save those for tomorrow's show. So for everybody from Joser, Miko, Abdi, and everybody else up, we will start off the super chat part of the show tomorrow with your questions first. So we'll get to you guys at the next one. All right, guys. That'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. And seriously, guys, it's a tremendous honor. It really is that you guys choose to spend a part of your day here with us. It's an incredible honor. Like when I start the show saying it's an honor and privilege, it's not just a line. I'm incredibly honored that you guys would spend part of your day here with us. So thank you for that. Special thank you to all you guys who sent in the questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported the channel while you did it. And all of us here, from me, Robert, Aaron, Jonathan, Ray, and on, all of us here at the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you guys very, very much for that. All right, guys, that will do it for me for now. Thanks so much for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, guys, bye-bye.